Mr. Ballon, Chairman Emeritus. We've come to you, ladies and gentlemen of the press, to respond to the President's State of the Nation address. The speech is being reviewed against the backdrop of what has been done, what should have been done, and what urgently needs to be done. The President, in his State of the Nation address, talks about an act to create the Liberia Standards Authority. There are about 100 public institutions in this country. Revenue is already limited. We don't see a need for the creation of another public institution which will significantly impact revenue sources. We urge the legislature not to create any new public institution that will burden our limited resources. We urge the legislature, rather, to strengthen existing institutions like the Ministry of Commerce to enable the outcome anticipated by the establishment of a standards authority. The Whistleblower Act Mr. President, individuals who dare to expose major acts of inappropriate behavior died mysteriously. Government response was most discouraging. The best witness protection in Whistleblower Act is investigation of the mysterious deaths of valiant men and women who dare to speak for the good of our country. We urge the legislature to encourage the justice system to re-examine available pieces of evidence to identify the true culprits in the several mysterious deaths. Ultimately, we would have strengthened confidence in our commitment to fight inappropriateness in Liberia. Last year, the President executive order on the LEC granted exclusion for GST on generation, transmission, and distribution equipment, materials, and fuel. That did not translate to availability of electricity, neither did it translate to a drop in the price. Ultimately, as of the last administration, the Madam Sirleaf administration, up to 120 million have been spent from direct tax revenue. The return on investment is arguable. We therefore strongly advise that the LEC, Liberia Water and Sewer Corporation, Liberia Petroleum Refining Company must be privatized. And by privatization, we do not mean give it to foreigners. Set up the framework for a successful public-private partnership in which the government is only an equity holder with no say in the day-to-day running of the organization, or a 100% private partnership in which Liberian businesses have competing equity and the GOL receives taxation and asset liquidation repayment over a period. To this end, the MPC avails itself and its services free of charge to enable the anticipated outcome. The economy. We thank the President and his government for retaining expenditure within the boundaries of the 518 million budget and the swift budget recast actions to avoid budgetary shortfalls. We think this is commendable. However, we also take note of the positive comments by the IMF about the improved fiscal space and thank the fiscal and monetary teams for this recognition by the IMF. But those comments ignore the larger low banking confidence that requires enhanced monetary restructuring to repair. The huge trade deficits, high unemployment, underemployment, and low GDP growth, which requires better fiscal and monetary actions to change the current trend. The Central Bank of Liberia, as currently constituted, is very autonomous and independent. However, its underperformance is not caused by lack of additional autonomy, but its abuse of authority. The largest contributor to the current low confidence in the banking system is the Central Bank of Liberia. The Central Bank owes commercial bank about $60 million, which came from the previous administration. Resultingly, treasury instruments were issued with the hope that that will be redeemed by the African Bank. In the end, as a result of that commitment to liquidate an old liability, commercial banks committed themselves to funding government programs, inclusive of the roads that are currently being constructed, and some of which have been completed. That led to another $25 million infusion into government projects. Today, the current stock of government debt, the current stock of central bank GOL debt to commercial banks stands at about $103 million. If the custodian of public funds deposited in banks misapply commercial banks' reserves, that custodian needs significant restructuring and not additional authority. The Crow report highlights the lack of automation and ethical approach deficits at the CBL. Liberian $16 billion was infused in the economy from 2016 July to 2018 December without a single evidence that such infusion was done through commercial banks as required by law. If the CBL is the biggest violator of the very act that created the institution, we must proceed cautiously with granting additional autonomy. We therefore urge the chairman of the Committee on Banking and Finance at both houses of Representative and Senate to do the following. Engage with USAID to finance a forensic audit of the CBL, to establish how printer monies are infused into the economy by evaluating how the $16 billion plus additional recently printed LRD $4 billion was infused in the Liberian economy, to advise the CBL the detailed automation process, to advise on setting up a local Liberian dollars printing mechanism to be outsourced with the requisite responsibility definition, to review the human resource requirement of the CBL versus the task of the CBL, meaning the number of persons working there versus the things they have to do. To this end, Simeon Freeman and the MPC avails itself to assist the realization of this goal. Mr. President, we are happy to hear the efforts made to recognize and consolidate the total domestic debt stock and the discovery of the additional $170.63 million government of Liberia debt to the CBL that was not recognized by the previous administration. Yet your administration also added additional debt to the already threatened situation. The following facts from the CBL report of 2019 speak for themselves. The total debt stock as of December 2018 was $878.2 million United States dollars, of which the total domestic debt to financial institutions was $261.6 million. The total external debt owed multilateral and bilateral institutions was $612 million. The total public debt by December 2018 was $1039.9 billion, of which total domestic debt was $265 million, and the total external debt was $774.9 million, up from $612 million the previous year. So you can see we did an additional borrowing on the external front. This represents a borrowing of $162.9 million. If you take a look at the president's speech, Sona's speech, 2019 speech delivered on January 27, 2020, he said in that speech that the IMF committed to give Liberia $213.3 million, of which $23 million have been provided to the government. We also do record the massive publicity lent to $500 million that should have been borrowed from an unknown entity which proved futile. So significant efforts was lent to borrowing as a way of financing development, something we strongly do not encourage. We therefore now encourage you, Mr. President, to enact a legislative instrument to cancel the $500 million unsuccessful borrowing attempt to avoid unanticipated occurrences to your government or future governments. Since the $500 million was never acquired, it was a law that we passed, and we need to review that quickly. The total public debt by December 2019 was $1248.3 billion. Domestic debt rose to $421.1 million. Of this amount, $368.1 is owed to financial institutions, meaning there's a rise of $103.2 million in debt to financial institutions. Our total external debt as of 2019 rose to $827.2 million, a rise of $52.3 million from 2018. It is therefore clear that government's principal means of financing long-term infrastructure projects is through debt. Massive acquisition of debt has long-term disastrous consequences for the future of our country. We urge you to please stop the massive debt acquisition. We urge the national legislature to enact no more debt instruments. The Committee on Ways, Means and Finance of both houses of the legislature should work with the executive's financial management team to develop new and creative ways to mobilize domestic revenue and manage domestic expenses. Significant efforts must be exerted to review the current GOL expenditure objectives and objects of expenditure, a challenge that must be tackled by any well-meaning government. To this end, Senior Freeman and the MPC avail our expertise free of charge for the good of our people. We gladly thank you, Mr. President, for commencing the repayment of domestic debt, which is good for borrowing, which is good for growing the domestic economy. We urge you to spend the recent $48 million acquired from the IMF to repay commercial banks unconditionally. Special attention must be lent to the LBDI, the Liberian Bank for Development and Investment, because it's the only surviving Liberian bank of Liberia's 9 banks and the country's only development bank. Mr. President, the central bank is heavily undercapitalized. and urgent actions must be taken by your government to capitalize the CBL and tame its operational expenditure to avoid a total dissipation of confidence in the banking sector. Should our suggestion be ignored, we may unfortunately witness the closure of some commercial banks in the not too distant future. The MPC and Senior Framework avail our services to assist the teaming of the CBL operational expenses and recapitalization of the CBL while simultaneously building confidence in the commercial banking sector of our country. Mr. President, I do not share your optimism for a GDP rebound from -3% to 3.2% for the following reasons, as predicted by the IMF. COVID-19 has mutated and developed new strains that are provingly 70% more contagious and 30% more deadly. Vaccine producers are based in the West and will immediately supply all production of vaccines to Western demands, which will only be satisfied by December 2021. Even if they were self-compelled by ethical considerations to sell to low-income countries, they will be constrained by domestic public policy actions to refrain from such a practice. If the pharmaceutical companies could produce vaccines in excess of their current production capacities, which is not likely, Liberia clearly lacks the financial resources to order 2 million vaccines, and as of now, we have not pre-ordered vaccines for our people. Vaccines aside, the fundamentals of our economy are out of order. We are heavily reliant on importation of basic food supplies, exposing us to the least external shocks. Extremely low banking confidence undermines investors' confidence, and your government is yet to take steps to repair this action. Your government has developed no mechanism to enable a local import substitution infrastructure necessary to spur economic growth. There are no clear-cut local value added incentive infrastructure program that is obtainable without much hassle, making it difficult to attract investors to a local value addition process. The mining and rubber sectors are heavily challenged and will be for a long time. Gone are the years when few countries had iron ore, gold, or diamond mines. It is now so widespread globally that investors must decide where to go to exploit minerals, or better still, which terrain is easily exploitable. Reliance on the extractive industry for economic growth has greatly hindered Liberia's competitiveness. Our educational sector is heavily academic based, with little technical expertise or the creation of technical capacities required for rapid economic growth. It is against this backdrop, plus more, that we do not share your optimism. Our fears creates an urgent need for strengthening of the current economic and financial management team with a clear term of reference, to review our current expenditure and objects of expenditures, to expand our domestic resource mobilization capacity, to invest heavily in the creation of import substitutions, to review our current educational focus and redesign a mechanism that enables technical expertise from the county to the capital, from the county level to the capital city, Monrovia, to recapitalize the central bank and review its operational expertise, to enable banking confidence, to rebase the Liberian economy using mobile money as the informal sector tool, The team must deliver its recommendations in 20 days. The teams must consist of professionals from all political backgrounds. We must learn to work with people that did not support us for the good of our country. Mr. President, I strongly disagree with you that inflation was lower from 30% to 12%. The outcome of bad investment in the CBL Treasury bill by bank and non-bank financial institutions mobilized billions of Liberian dollars from the banking sector. That action disabled commercial banks' capacity to pay depositors, which ultimately led to Susu clubs withdrawing an estimated 800 million Liberian dollars from commercial banks, leaving only 200 million of their 1 billion deposit within commercial banks. Large businesses similarly withheld deposits. The prices of all commodities on the Liberian market remain unchanged, and consumers were greatly challenged by rising prices but declining exchange rates, which suppressed their purchasing power. While an appearance of inflation reduction was projected by the situation, the reality is untrue. Your citizens, Mr. President, the Liberian people, are enduring much hardship caused largely by poor economic management approaches. We strongly encourage you, Mr. President, to change course, lest your legacy is ruined and all that George Weah represents is lost forever to the memory of deep economic hardship. People are barely existing, and this must be arrested. To this end, the MPC and Simeon Freeman avail ourselves to help the rescue of our country. Mr. President, in one part of your speech, you claim 40% of all banknotes in circulation is mutilated. In another part, you say 90% of all monies in circulation is outside the banking system. If 90% of the total stock of money is if 90% of the total stock of money in circulation is outside the banking system, what mechanism was used to determine that 40% of the total stock in circulation is mutilated? These strong financial policy statements are intended to gain the sympathy of the public and the legislators to submit to the CBL's demands for a new family of banknotes. During the tenure of the late former President Samuel Doe, we created a dual currency regime with the hope that the then National Bank will have a better monetary policy framework. Years later, that framework was never realized. Former interim President Dr. Amos Sawyer introduced the current Liberty Legacy banknotes to have a better money Monserrato to rural Liberia. This encouraged deposits from individuals and businesses in rural Liberia. The recent heightened banking confidence crisis cannot be printed away by the introduction of a new family of banknotes. Former President Madam Ellen Sirleaf printed $16 billion in 2016-2017 with the intent to retrieve mutilated Liberian dollar banknotes, but sadly, the Crow report, the independent auditor hired by USAID did not see the mutes, though the money was infused. So even though 16 billion was printed to replace mutilated banknotes, the independent auditor did not see the mutilated banknotes. The MPC believes the following can be done to incorporate the informal sector in the economy and stabilize banking confidence. Utilize the current mobile money revolution to build confidence. Convert all mobile phone numbers into a person's tax identification number. Enable an information sharing infrastructure with telcos to access the weekly volume of transactions per user. After profiling a person, the taxpayer's income via mobile money can be taxed. Tax paid via telcos, mobile wallet can be transferred to the commercial bank or the CBL. The CBL can grant permits to Susu clubs and make definitions about their structure and capital requirement, effectively converting them into rural or urban-rural banks. They become transitory banks for larger commercial transactions. Basically what I'm saying here is Susu clubs, instead of just remaining Susu clubs, can have formal offices. They can be granted banking status to open a small savings and loan scheme arrangement, which is done in America, is done all around the world. So if you don't want to bank with a major bank, since you have confidence in the Susu club, you can bank with the Susu club. The ultimate banker of the Susu club is the larger commercial bank. In that way, people that don't have confidence in the banking system or have confidence in the Susu club will bank in their Susu club, and their Susu club deposits as it grows. Ultimately, the banks have the vault and the structure to keep their money. In that way, the central bank will be able to tap on and know the total number and of value of quantity of money, value and quantity of money in circulation within our economy. Our goal is to increase the number of unbanked Liberians. The unbanked Liberians are either too far away from urban centers or do not have sufficient money to own a bank account. Those that are bankable have confidence in their current banking system, which is those that are bankable have confidence in the banking system. However, the above action enable them to bank in structures they trust or raise revenue through. So using those mediums, we will have the Susu club then being able to mobilize money. A lot of people, take for example, Weah. There are no commercial banks in Weah, but let's say I do transactions and I trust my Susu club in Weah. If the central bank licensed them to be a rural bank with say a capitalization of say $100 million or something, in that way they have a structure. They don't need an elaborate infrastructure. The central bank provides training. We will be able to tap on those persons that do not trust our current banking system. In short, what we're trying to say, we need to have creative ways in which we can mobilize confidence instead of trying to print our way out of it. But let's face it, even if we wanted to print money, let's assume some of the conservative estimates that there are about say 35 billion Liberian dollars on the market. To print $1 billion, we need about 1.2 million US dollars. If you multiply that, it means we need quite a lot of money. That's why we're not printing with Thomas de la Rue anymore, because they were requiring a lot more. So if you took $1.2 million, multiplied by say 30, you'll be talking about 36 million US dollars. Now the second issue would be the issue of lifespan. What's the issue? What's the lifespan of the quality of notes we have? Some people say 6 months, some people say 1 year, some people say 3 months, some people say 3 years. But the way we are so harsh with the money, what does it do? It damages the money rather quickly. So we're going to throw 36 million US dollars away just to print Liberian dollars that ultimately could be ruined. Most of it could be ruined in say 6 months to a year. I think we need to think this through quickly, and it is to this end that we're willing to engage policymakers to have a discussion, an understanding, a debate about this issue, so that the best mindset can win. And I think if we bring that approach to governance, it's not about who is in opposition, who is not in opposition. Ultimately, it's about how Liberia wins. And I think, Mr. President, you should listen and lean and let let yourself be persuaded by this, because when you are out of power, it will be said during the Weah administration, this thing happened, that thing happened. Our names will not even be called. Whoever the Minister of Finance was or Minister of Public Works will not even be remembered. It will be that president's administration. And I think you need to open your corridors and your door to everybody from all aspects of the opposition. Invite us often, sit with your financial management team, and let us proffer to you our alternative understanding of the governance infrastructure. We want to thank the government and the president for the $2 million allotted for petty traders, and also to the USAID for the $10 million allotted for petty traders. However, the government approach that they want to print national identification card for about 82,000 persons, petty traders across this country, as a way of avoiding duplication. We think differently. We think let this $12 million be the beginning of starting this mobile money revolution, so that it is not just a cash in, cash out, but payments can be made to them through mobile money, and their revenue stream can be tracked via mobile money. It changes the whole focus. If a person has a number, the person is registered, the same name is on all of the platforms. If even the person has two numbers and register on two platforms and two mobile money numbers on two platforms, it's going to be the same name, it's going to be the same person, it can be easily tracked, and in this way we can use mobile money instead of it being a cash in, cash out. The reason why mobile money is beginning to be limited is because I send John money, John goes to a vendor and take it out. However, if John was using it to buy goods and services, he wouldn't need to take it off his phone. He can basically just buy right from his phone using that. And I think we should use $12 million as an important vehicle to start this digital currency and digital payment infrastructure, which will reduce the need to even continuously print paper money. Infrastructure. The president in his speech talked about roads and the construction of roads. We want to thank the government for these roads that have been built. They are good for our country. We need to be connected. However, we strongly urge a local value added drive, or we might just have a connected yet unproductive country with huge debt and limited repayment capacity. We also thank the government for the houses built for our people at the Popo Beach and elsewhere. While this is commendable, we must develop a strong local housing policy to avoid the current haphazard arrangement that is driven by a response to disaster rather than a policy that enables the housing of Liberians nationwide. To this end, we strongly advise the utilization of public lands to build large-scale housing estates, firstly for government employees and then for the general public. That will enable an easy housing acquisition program. This will be our first attempt to build and organize a planned living for Liberians. Mr. President, agriculture provides more than 60% of the total job stock in our country, while food and food-related expenses accounts for a significant portion of our trade deficit. Yet you only encourage a return to the soil. We are totally disappointed by this reaction to the sector. About $600 million was spent by donors on the agricultural sector during the tenure of your predecessor. Since your inception in 2018, to date, about $30 million have been spent on the agricultural sector, though we still spend about $260 million annually on rice importation. The MPC is ready to prepare an agricultural sector revitalization paper that will quickly revive the sector. If followed, Liberia could witness a dynamic double-digit growth in less than 12 months. With education, we thank our students for the progress made in public exams and government assistance to the sector. However, significant actions must be taken to refocus our educational outlook. Liberian education is too academically based, and this hinders industrialization and increased anticipated productivity. The private sector in Liberia does not need the types of graduates available to the job market. we must refocus our educational system to a more technically capable educational system. Support to education must transcend free primary and college education. We must strongly consider the quality of our education and the impact it has on national development. We must review and enhance the quality of competence impacting skills to students across our country. Integrity institutions. We join our voice with that of the President urging the legislature to urgently pass the LACC Autonomy Act to grant prosecutorial powers to the LACC. This will help the LACC fight corruption cases faster. We also strongly oppose the setting up of another criminal code F. The existing criminal codes can be strengthened. The judiciary is currently poorly funded with limited reach throughout Liberia. Increasing The judiciary is currently poorly funded with limited reach throughout Liberia. Increasing the size of the judiciary is not the best way to enhance productivity and ensure better outcome. We remind the President that corruption has two indexes: the perception index and the act of corruption itself. The greatest fight against corruption is fought at the perception level. The head of the LACC is himself ethically challenged. He has times without number presented multiple conflicting information about his date of birth and naturalization. He has woefully failed to redeem himself from these duplicities. It is therefore proper to categorically distance yourself from Mr. Wambudiki as a demonstration of your commitment to ensure the LACC is chaired and run by individuals who are themselves capable of maintaining one wife and moral enough to fight corruption. We urge the legislature to immediately pass a vote of no confidence in Mr. Wambudiki and deprive the LACC of all public resources until the President submits to the demands of the legislature and the people of Liberia. Should the legislature fail to do so, Liberians will enjoin the legislature to the President in 2023 as those ruining the good name of our country regarding the fight against corruption. We also think there is a need to review the existence of the Internal Audit Agency, the General Auditing Commission, and the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission. These are multiple organizations with similar functions and seeking similar outcomes. There is a strong need to unite these into one small but effective integrity institution, realizing the same united goals of the three with better outcomes for the people of Liberia. We hasten to state that the existence of laws or amended laws do not by themselves enable anticipated outcomes. The President must demonstrate the political will to prosecute corruption and acts of corruption by his officials. We do not need a legislation for the President to ensure his officials declare their assets before, during, and after their tenure of service. The President himself must be the fulcrum balancing out this very necessary need in the governance process. When the President declares his asset but seals it, it creates a perception of corruption. And we encourage you, Mr. President, to be the fulcrum against the perception of corruption fight. To this end, the MPC and Senior Freeman avail our services free of charge to realize this outcome. On health, we thank you, Mr. President, and your government for the dynamism in halting the coronavirus spread in Liberia. A special thanks to our development partners for the direct budgetary support and NGOs that braved the storm to assist Liberians. Today, Liberians are a lot less aware that the rest of the world still wrestles with a highly contagious virus. Despite the gains made, Mr. President, hospitals across Liberia are terribly challenged, both infrastructurally and with access to medication and operational support. Our patient-to-doctor ratio is extremely limited. Government must take substantive actions to increase our patient-to-doctor stock throughout Liberia. The quality of laboratories at most health facilities throughout Liberia is incapable of detecting anything more than malaria and typhoid. Health workers remain deeply unsatisfied, and actions must be taken to restore the confidence of health workers to enable better service delivery to our people. To this end, our recommendation, we suggest the introduction of a special health tax of 2%. This will fund the introduction of a compulsory public health insurance scheme to fund the GOL via the 2% tax. The scheme will work like this. All taxpayers will pay a 2% compulsory health insurance tax. Corporate institutions will pay 3% health insurance tax. All Liberians will be entitled to an insurance card to be provided by private insurance companies. An annual 8,500 Liberian dollars insurance card value will be placed on, an amount will be placed on that insurance card issued by private insurance companies. So as an insurance card beneficiary, I can go to any government hospital and get services. When services are obtained, how do the insurance company get paid? The government pays them. The government pays the insurance company, and the insurance company pays the government hospital. In this way, the government hospitals will have access to funds, resources, availability, and that will in turn enable the kinds of resources they need for the operational capacity. Many times you go to these hospitals, they have nothing. We must find creative ways in which we can do this. If I have an 8,500 Liberian dollars insurance card and it runs out, I can recharge the card by paying the money directly to the insurance company. In this way, access to health is assured through the availability of this card that's funded through this tax collected and paid to the insurance company. It will encourage an increased insurance market, it will create more jobs in the private sector, and it will enable a dynamic health outcome. And the revenue stream of the public health facilities will now be assured through a taxation effort. It's no longer going to be just on the basis of giving some grant. Sometimes the grant gets stopped through different ministerial infrastructure, and then the service is never delivered. Mr. President, strong support must be lent by your government to our local medical doctor specialization programs. This will greatly increase the stock of specialist doctors. Our overall competitiveness as a nation is deeply challenged by the type and quality of persons leading the charge in your government. Urgent steps must be taken to correct this approach. We encourage you, Mr. President, to conduct regular engagement with the opposition. Ultimately, this will enhance government's overall output and result in a better Liberia. We want to thank you, Mr. Chairman of the MPC, the Honorable Dr. Pega, the Honorable John Ballon, the Honorable SG, and you, Chair of the MPC, for this opportunity to speak to our Liberian people. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith Freeman. I'm Sarah Samo. I work for Fabric 101.1 FM. Thank you for your explanation. But coming to the issue of the printing of money, which of course the president is asking legislature to act swiftly to print new family of banknotes.
Correct.
You were not definite. Are you in support? Do you want legislature to accept that request from the central bank, or they should not?
We're definite. We said it should not. We also clarified that not just that it should not print, we suggested several ways in which we can mobilize domestic revenue, several ways in which we can get the money, because here are the core issues. Issue number one, 90% of the total currency in circulation is outside the banking sector. So it's only 10% within the banking sector. The issue is banking confidence have been around for a long time. Since the 90s, like I said, when the new family of banknotes were issued, I don't know how old you are, but there was the Weah Bank, there was Ruby, there was First Bank, and all kinds of banks that were in existence that just collapsed one after the other. And at the time, the minimum capital reserve requirement was just about $2 million. We printed a new family of banknotes, and there were collapse of many banks. So we've learned from that. What we're saying is we must tackle the problem and don't create an additional expense for the problem. Even if you want to print a new family of banknotes, like we said, you need about 36 to 40 million US dollars, which can do a lot for us, which we already don't have. It means we have to go borrow money to print our own money. You understand? So we're saying, look, the challenge is the man in Weah does not trust the bank. So maybe he's got 3 million in Weah. The man in Garplay or the man in Camplay probably has got 4 million. So let's say there are billions of dollars outside the banking system. What do? Who does he trust? He trusts the Susu Club. We're saying license the Susu Club to become rural banks. So they become quasi-banking institutions like it's done in many other countries. So since he trusts the Susu Club, he will not just use the Susu Club as an eating point or loan point, but he can now trust the Susu Club to begin to deposit his money. So the Susu Club will reach to those places that commercial banks cannot reach. So that, and if you reduce the threshold, let's say you put it at $100 million or $200 million, and the Susu Club, a rural bank can be big like this, place with 2-3 rooms, small offices, they have the central bank can advise that, we would have created a mechanism to attract the money that is not in the banking system to begin to get in the banking system, because the banker of the Susu Club will be the commercial bank ultimately, which will then create a mechanism for the money to be tracked. The second thing we're saying, look, use mobile money. As of 2019, the 2019 Central Bank year-end report, the total value of Liberian dollars traffic via mobile money, right, was in billions of dollars. We converted it at a time, we came to 832 million US dollar equivalent in Liberian dollars and US dollar that was traffic. It means there is an alternative bank sprouting out outside of the banking system. Almost $1 billion transacted in 2019. The 2020 report is almost 60% that. What we say, begin to set up structures for mobile money for increased taxation. You have a mobile money account. You have a shop. All I need to do, get your name from the mobile phone company, get your mobile money number. According to the very Central Bank report, there are about 3.8 million mobile wallets registered on the telcos. So that means with that size, the population is just about 5 to 6 million. So with that size of 3.8 million registered on the telco, what that does is that it gives the central bank significant leverage to track the monetary infrastructure. Right now we call it SICO. SICO means cash in, cash out. I send you money, take it off, use it. But if the central bank works with the telcos, and the central bank, that's what I'm saying, the $12 million, 10 from the USAID, 2 from our government, 12 million, if we decide to target petty traders and we use that as our prototype infrastructure, what that will do is that when you want to buy Kobo, what do? You use mobile money right from your phone. I mean, where your mobile money number? Oh my, where your mobile money number? And mobile money number is there, and I'll pay you. You all know mobile money takes seconds and it's there. Boop, you are paid. Everybody's happy. The 5,000 LD that I sent you, you don't need to take it off your phone. It creates an opportunity for income to be tracked. What that does is it creates a responsibility chain for Mamusu to also pay taxes, for Pempe Man to pay taxes, for everybody to pay some kind of taxation. From our estimation and the projection we've done, if you use that means, you will be expanding our revenue base by more than $300 million just trying to leverage technology. Then we say the government wants revenue. Let's use real estate taxation. The other day I was coming from the Freeman City place we're trying to develop, but not even the other day, yesterday. I was amazed. If you take from ELWA Junction, down to Shuffling, the number of houses that have developed on our ELWA road. Imagine if every one of those houses were even paying $25 or even $20 a month for real estate taxes, or even $10 a month for real estate taxation. You know how much taxes we'll collect? We significantly mobilize domestic revenue that can be repurposed. So we're saying printing of money is the lazy way of solving our problem, and it has never solved it. But let me go back. Like I said in the speech, Samuel Doe printed money. The former president Samuel Doe printed. You guys are young, but those of us that are older, the printer were using only US dollar in Liberia. In the 80s, Doe brought the 7 corner. From there we went to JJ. And what happened? We still have banking challenges. We didn't even have banks reaching outside. It was only in the 2000s that banks went outside of Monrovia. So all we're saying, it is the lazy way to solve our problem by going by a new family of banknotes. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Freeman, I'm Yekazi Zobel from Spawn FM and Spawn TV. If I got you right, you basically proffering a long-term solution to avoid the frequent printing.
Short-term solution to a long-term problem, not long-term solution.
Okay, so currently Liberians are kind of looking for a quick solution to the financial crisis immediately. So what do you think is that quick solution? Is it the printing of new money?
I said it already. I said it. I'm saying, listen, the Susu clubs, the Susu clubs, the non-Susu clubs, their total deposit in commercial banks, you know how much? Is $1 billion Liberian dollars. Susu clubs. When all of the banking confidence started, they withdrew 800 million and left only 200 million. So you see the solution? If you convert them into small quasi-banking institution, like even in America, they got savings bank. They were savings scheme before they converted it now into savings bank. You know, savings and loan bank. They have it in every state, in every community. It's not just here. In Ghana, they now created a room for rural bank, so they have small levels of it. We have to create structure. If you don't trust me, but you trust Mr. Balloon, but Mr. Balloon trusts me, I will use your trust in Mr. Balloon to be able to track what you have. That's what we're proposing. It is an immediate action that gives you outcome. But if you go by the lazy methodology, will be print a whole new family of banknotes. You print a whole new family of banknotes. The first problem is you spending up to 30, 40 million US dollar that can open several factories that can convert our agricultural infrastructure and add significant value to print Liberian dollars that will spoil in 6 months, that will spoil in 1 year, that will spoil in 2 years. Is that a wise investment? That's what we say. So we're not encouraging the president and we're not supporting the legislature. In those areas where we support him, we also said that. For example, we supported him with the issue of empowering the LSCC to be independent. We support that. We think that's very important. But we don't support having somebody there that is not ethical. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Honorable Freeman. I'm Judo Nicoli. I come from Ram FM. Thanks for the response to the President's message. But I'm concerned about this statistics given by President Weah that during the COVID-19, the stimulus package has gone to 1 million people, affected the lives of 1 million people, all of the 15 countries, 10 of the countries have benefited. What's your take on the President's?
Again, it's difficult to measure things when you don't have access to the documentation. But we do know that the government passed that on to WFP. That's why you read the speech. He said, according to the WFP report, 1 million persons have benefited. These other counties have not, and that a no commitment waiver, meaning since the timeline for performing this service lapsed, now the government granted them additional time to deliver services. So I'm not sure what the yardstick is that WFP used, and so it will be difficult to speak on something that I don't have information about.
Yes, sir. My name is Co-Chairman Sherman. I'm from KMTV. I'm concerned about two issues. One, specifically the President's speech. He said in almost a concluded statement that there will be no room for error. I think that was strictly to his cabinet and other heads and those working in the public sector. What do you really make of that statement? And then two, you can go ahead. Why try to reflect on your other materials?
Thank you, sir. When he says there will be no room for error, I'm not the encoder of his statement, so I can't decode what he said. But what I can say to him is, it's been 3 years and there has not been a major reshuffle of the government. And like they say in Liberia, you can take the horse to the well, but you can't force it to drink. They also say a stick in the river will not convert that stick into fish, even if it stays there 50 years. And my point is, if persons have been in office since 2018 January, and this is now January 2021, and the outcome delivered so far has not been good, if I were the president, I would be thinking about that. However, the person who's supposed to evaluate performance is the president. And if he's comfortable with them, then obviously we can see from the current outcome that things are not so good. So we from the opposition, what we are trying to do is not just to talk, but to proffer solutions and to avail ourselves and say, these are the ways it can be done, and this is the way we can help. It's not that we want job in the government, but we want to be able to engage, say, the ministerial team. So the president sits down with a cabinet and invite the opposition, people that have something to say, and say, please make a presentation to us and let's discuss your idea on agriculture. Let's discuss your idea on the economy. This is the way we believe we can drive productivity. Because I am not president doesn't mean my ideas could not necessarily be implemented.
And so if I may have heard you right, you said the economic hardship imposed on the citizenry could lead to a political drought on the president. I think, if I may hear you right in your speech, you want to really clarify what you meant by that?
I think you're framing it wrongly. I said, because it was stated here, but I've closed the laptop now, but I'll just go and see what I'm saying. I'm saying
specifically in 2023.
Yeah, in 2023, you see, in 2020, what happened? The ruling party got little or no seat in spite of what they spent. So in 2023, if the governance process is not reviewed and major actions are not taken, the confidence of the people would have been undermined in a George Weah, and the probability, and I didn't just put it in our vote, senators will be re-elected, 15 senators will be re-elected in 2023, 72 representatives will be up for election. That's why I placed the board not just in the court of the president, but in the court of the legislators. And I'm saying if actions are not taken, there will be a total lack of confidence by the electors in their action. That's what we meant.
Thank you.